Creatures of beauty, ethereal beings of light, winged humanoids from a paradise that we can't see. Throughout the years, these same descriptions have all pointed to angels. In Christianity, angels are described as intelligent beings created by God before the creation of man, also commonly referred to as Elohim. Like man, they have free will. Unlike man, they have no earthly bodies or mortal desires. In the great battle of heaven, the most beautiful angel, Lucifer, gave into pride and demanded to be worshipped as well. The angels that sided with Lucifer were cast out of heaven after losing the great battle. And after being cast out, they rotted and became deformed, turning into demons. Or at least, this is kind of how the story goes. So what happens when people claim to see angels on Earth? Are they here to warn us, guide us, or are they a figment of the imagination? Before we get into today's video, be sure to go ahead and smack that like and subscribe button because I regularly release storytelling of the mysterious and supernatural. Let's go. Like seeing images of Christ in toast or demons in possessed individuals, people have claimed to see angels in their everyday lives as well. Often, people will describe angels as beautiful winged human-like creatures that glow. Interestingly, this is not how the Bible describes angels. Are you familiar with the phrase, "Be not afraid, I will not hurt you"? You should, because this phrase comes up a lot in the Bible. Namely, it's mainly angels who use this line. But if these creatures are so beautiful and human-like, then why would they be frightening? In Ezekiel 1, a prophet describes one angel he encountered as a singular eye surrounded by ever-turning wheels, glowing with heavenly fire. Cherubim, a type of high-ranking angel, are described as having 4 faces, with each face pointed in all 4 directions: north, east, west, and south. Seraphim, another type of high-ranking angel, are the only ones consistently described as having 6 wings. The 2 of these 6 wings are forever covering their eyes, and they are in the rank of angels who are in the closest connection to God. They therefore must have 2 of their wings covering their eyes, or even they cannot withstand the fiery glow of God. Interestingly, there are many times in the Bible which describes angels appearing as nothing extraordinary at all. Hebrews 13:2 states that people should be cautious of how they treat others. They never know when they may be speaking to an angel who's here on Earth undercover. Now, in 1998, Mark M. was diagnosed with leukemia when he was a little boy. Fearing for the worst, his parents prayed a rosary every day, hoping their son would be cured. On one particular bad day, when Mark was in a lot of pain, Mark saw a woman in a white dress sitting next to his hospital bed reading a book. She didn't look like a nurse, and she certainly wasn't a relative. Mark asked who she was. The woman responded by saying she was supposed to be there to make sure Mark was okay because this wasn't his time yet. Mark wasn't sure what that meant, but delirious from the pain, he decided to go to sleep and ask the lady more questions when he woke up. Of course, the woman wasn't there when Mark did wake up, and Mark told his parents what he saw the night before and what the lady had told him, and his parents began to weep. Nobody was in the room with Mark that night, but the phrasing of "not yet your time" rang in the parents' ears like a hopeful bell that the end was in fact not near. Sure enough, Mark's cancer cleared up almost overnight. No explanation, no word of who this mystery woman was. Was this comforting presence a guardian angel from above, or perhaps a hallucination from the pain of cancer? The Bible itself is full of tales of ordinary people encountering angels. Although, it should be noted that the encounters themselves with angels are a far cry from ordinary. One famous story is in Genesis 19, the story of Lot encountering 2 angels walking around Sodom to see if there was anything or anyone worth salvaging. The 2 angels took the form of men who looked all but normal except for their beauty. The men of Sodom all noticed, including Lot. Lot pleaded with the 2 angels to stay in his home where they would be safe because he knew the other men of the town had nefarious intentions with lost travelers who did not know their way. The angels politely declined and said they didn't want to trouble him and that they'd rest in their own town square. Lot adamantly argued with them, pleading to come to his home where they would be safe. The angels agreed and went home with Lot, where he fed them, gave them clothing, and a place to sleep. Now it was shortly afterward that the men of Sodom banged on Lot's door, demanding to see the new arrivals. Much like in the movie Deliverance, these sinners had similar intentions with their new arrivals. Lot begged the men to not harm the travelers, and the men threatened to hurt Lot instead, hoping to intimidate him into giving the mob the strangers. But Lot refused, risking his own safety. He told the mob they were not allowed to harm them. The mob grew impatient, tried to break down the door with Lot, holding it closed on the other side. This commotion woke up the travelers. They walked to the door where the angry mob was trying to break in and struck down the men of Sodom with blindness. All of them, except Lot, were permanently blind. As the mob of men panicked, the travelers informed Lot that they were angels. They were here undercover as an assignment from God to see if Sodom was worth saving. They weren't impressed. Lot begged the angels to save the city, but the angels said it was too late and God was already disgusted with the people there. Lot seemed to be the only good one who showed kindness to strangers, so they said they would spare his life and the life of his family if he ran away from the city and didn't look back. Lot, his wife, 2 daughters, and son-in-law all fled the city and did not look back, except Lot's wife. When she looked back, boom, she turned into a pillar of salt. Strange encounter, right? But the moral of this story is never be unkind to strangers. You never know when you may be entertaining angels. Of course, these are tales of angels who came with vengeance on the mind, but what about guardian angels? Angels who are meant to be a source of comfort for individuals here on Earth. Now in 1440, St. Frances of Rome was a wealthy mother of 3 in medieval Italy. She used her money to help the poor and orphaned, only to have one of her daughters perish young. Falling into deep depression after this loss, and rightfully so, Frances claimed to have a vision from an angel saying that God wanted to reward her for her sacrifice and charity. Because she lost her daughter, she was given the gift of seeing her own guardian angel that followed her wherever she went, never being alone again. Frances described her own guardian angel as appearing as a small blonde child, much like her own daughter who passed. This raises the question, can angels control the shape of the form they take here on Earth? From appearing as a child to a woman who lost her daughter, to appearing as a handsome stranger in a town of violent and cruel men, do angels intentionally shift into the form that best communicates a message or tests humanity? Now, interestingly, we see the theme of people changing their shape to test or comfort others in a lot of fairy tales. From Beauty and the Beast, where the witch goes from an ugly hag to a beautiful woman, to test a shallow prince, to a frog turning into a handsome prince by the kindness of a young woman. Appearances being intentionally deceiving has been a reoccurring theme in fairy tales from around the world. Perhaps subconsciously, humans have seen these lessons manifest in other ways before, and fairy tales are a way of recreating the incomparable. In an alternate theory to a religious perspective, people have theorized from the warnings to the glowing light these beings radiate that angels may not be beings of heaven, but rather aliens. I know, it sounds crazy, but the religious figures actually being aliens theory has been around for quite some time. In fact, Genesis 6:12 talks about the Nephilim. There's supposedly a half race of human and angel. Essentially, the story goes by saying that in the early days of humanity, sons of God fell in love with the beauty of the daughters of man. Now, this was interpreted to mean that angels fell in love with human women and had children with them called the Nephilim, children with inhuman beauty and abilities. Now, I know this whole thing is a huge debate and it is just a theory, but if you look into more of the Book of Enoch, there's a lot more information in there that kind of regurgitates the same information. Anyway, there was interpreted another way. What if the sons of God who came down from the heavens to have children with the daughters of man were actually aliens? For centuries, people have been claiming to have encounters with aliens from the skies that range from seeing spaceships to having more personal encounters. Even famous encounters with the Nordics in 1998, where a man claimed to have met and spoke with Nordic aliens who said they were genetically close enough to man that they could crossbreed with humans and create the modern man that we know today to come with the idea of sons of God descending from heaven. Could it be possible that the otherworldly encounters man had that created hybrid children were not with literal angels, but with other men from the skies instead? I get it. One huge argument that I hear is no, angels did not breed with man because angels don't have genitalia like a human does. But again, these are two coexisting theories that I hear constantly battling. Again, what I find personally interesting is that the Book of Enoch really goes in depth about this stuff. Long story short, it is very strange. Now, man seems to consistently get warnings from aliens about not destroying the planet and being kinder to each other, much in the same way man gets warnings from angels. In multiple encounters with aliens, people are always warned about human behavior and their propensity to violence. What if this whole time, glowing beings warning humans about their behavior is from the skies above, but not the heavens above? Who's to say? What can be said are the stories of encounters people have shared with others. In 1841, a woman named Olive had her own widely reported encounter in Ohio. She claimed to have seen an aurora borealis in the sky that made several people stop and stare. What she was not expecting was that when she and others looked more closely at this wave of color and light in the sky, that it would be made up of figures in robes marching and even dancing in procession, floating in the air. Over 30 people saw the miracle, and it lasted over an hour. It's probably one of the most thoroughly documented older sightings of angels outside of any scripture. Now, not long after 1874, a colonel by the name of Moody claimed that he was preaching in Ohio when what appeared to be an angel floated above them. The entire congregation gasped and cried out as the apparition floated for about 10 minutes before disappearing. Something must be going on in Ohio. Interestingly, a lot of angel sightings seem to happen in Western Europe and the American Midwest. In Indianapolis, a congregation was singing a hymn in church when a phantom of an angel manifested before them. The phantom's robes were clean and white, but its face was shrouded in shadow. The features were clear, but the face itself was darkened and hard to see. When the song concluded, the phantom angel vanished. The whole congregation saw it, and to this day nobody knows who or what the being was. In 1917, Greensburg, Kansas had a slew of sightings for the entire year. The town claimed an apparition of an angel appeared right before a snowstorm. Is anybody else getting Mothman vibes here? You know, with the whole bridge collapsing? Anyway, the angel continued to appear on and off through the year, giving the townspeople a renewed sense of hope and community. Even though the skeptical police chief had witnessed the angel on 2 occasions. Was the town just looking for hope in a time of the Spanish flu and World War? Or did an angel appear as a sign of hope to a small blue-collar town that needed it? And what of the angels of Europe? For centuries, Christianity and Judaism have played huge roles in European history, so it should be no surprise that they seem to have a monopoly on angel sightings. But was it just saints and martyrs who claim to see these angelic figures? In Europe, most sightings of angels seem to occur when there is a great pain, war, and overall trouble. Something that afflicted European history from the 1940s and before. Although, in a bizarre turn of events, bishops in Ukraine have been saying in 2021 and 2022, many Ukrainians who are fighting for their country have been reporting seeing miracles and even angelic figures. Interestingly, Saint Michael the Archangel is the patron saint of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. What makes that interesting is that Michael the Archangel is the patron saint of fighters and warriors, often being depicted wielding a sword. The angel Michael is the one some Ukrainians are claiming they've been seeing protecting them and their city. The angels of Mons are particularly well-known sightings that happened in Europe during World War I. The Battle of Mons took place in Belgium between the British and the Germans. The Germans were advancing and the British were suffering heavy casualties. According to the British, many supernatural occurrences were happening. During that strange battle, a phantom bowman was spotted assisting in taking down German forces. Many British men assumed it was St. George, the patron saint of England. Incidentally, also the reason the English flag is known as the St. George flag. But some British soldiers even claimed that they saw angels themselves guiding their hands to help fight off enemy forces. That's pretty heavy. Lastly, many British soldiers started to claim that they saw visions of Joan the Arc herself fighting against the forces and giving the men hope. Was this a case of mass hysteria brought on by the horrors of war, or a case of seeing miraculous in a situation filled with tragedy? In a video we did earlier about the sighting of Fatima, Portugal, 3 children claimed to have seen visions of an angel before they saw the Virgin Mary herself. Thousands of people claim they too saw the apparition, and even photographs of the event were taken that are still around today. But why do these apparitions appear before a great catastrophe? Are these angels already on the ground, watching our every move, then reporting their findings to other angels to give us warning when we've gone too far? Why can some people see angels and other non-human entities, while others see nothing out of the ordinary? Similarly, why can people have encounters with demons and immediately know something is wrong, but sense nothing out of the ordinary when angels walk among us? I mean, we've all heard the stories of psychics and mediums visiting houses possessed by evil and infested with poltergeist. They can always seem to tell when evil is lurking in a place or within a person. In a bizarre case in Indiana, there was one such house that was allegedly possessed by multiple demons that were there to cause the very pain that these angels normally try to warn man of. In 2011, the Amon's house, or the House of 200 Demons, was occupied by a family in Gary, Indiana. Now, immediately after moving in, the family experienced horror upon horror. The daughter of the family levitated above the bed, the mother was choked out by an unseen force, and the son was possessed by one of these demons who kept threatening to take out the whole family. The family doctor was asked to make a house call to help verify that something strange was going on in the house that was making the entire family sick. Now, sure enough, the doctor immediately started seeing shadowy figures, seeing the family's odd behavior, and commenting on a heavy and evil feeling in the home. The doctor told the family that there was something wrong with the house and to leave and to come to the clinic immediately. Now, when the family was still acting strange in the clinic, the doctor and his team theorized that the children may be performing for the mother. After separating the children from the mother, they noticed no difference. The children continued to have ugly visions of obscene material and frightening views of nightmares that wouldn't leave the children even in their walking world. The doctors were about to examine the son further, who seemed to be the most affected, as his voice would change when his eyes would roll in the back of his head and he would turn and threaten those around him. Before he could, however, the boy begins to walk up backwards to the wall of the room, much to the shock of the social worker. The doctor, the nurse, and the admin staff were all present. The family was advised to get a priest to exorcise the demon. After the priest did an exorcism of the house and the family, the priest said that the family was now safe and the home was beyond salvaging. The family didn't need to be told twice. They moved to Indianapolis and the home was condemned. The home itself is still allegedly possessed by many demons that people claim they still feel, but the home was saved from permanent foreclosure by Zak Bagans, a famous ghost hunter who claims he can still feel evil in the house to this day. But, that's debatable because, as we all know watching this, Zak Bagans is in the entertainment business, not the paranormal investigation business, but I digress. So, as we as humans can't seem to feel angels among us, can we feel demons? Can we see them? Is this because we're more susceptible to evil than pure goodness? Or is evil just more accessible on Earth and afterlife? One person had a close encounter with evil that sparked a major story. In 1983, Don Decker claimed his grandfather was susceptible to evil. He was a bad man to begin with, but he was possessed by something more. The family never voiced what was wrong with the grandfather, as they were the family who didn't want the neighbors to think ill of them. Plus, Decker was a troubled kid himself, so his tales of how bad his grandfather would be would often fall on deaf ears. Now, once Decker became a man, he got arrested and was in jail for a few years. Not unusual for Decker. He was a slow student who struggled to find his way in life. When he was in jail, he was told his grandfather had died, but was allowed to go home for a few days to see him in the funeral. Decker attended the funeral and had a strange feeling throughout the procession. He claimed he could feel his vengeful grandfather waiting in the shadows to get one last blow-in. When Decker was taking a shower after the funeral, he claimed he saw a demon's face looking back at him that distorted and morphed into the wicked face of his grandfather, and back again. He then saw an image of a demon wearing a crown in the mirror. Decker panicked when he felt scratches running down his arms and back. When he examined himself in the mirror, he realized that he wasn't imagining it. Scratches really were appearing out of nowhere all over his body. He threw on a pair of jeans, ran downstairs, telling his family something satanic was going on, or as some say, satanic. Before he could explain further, the family began to hear water dripping. Rain began to pour slowly from the ceiling and onto the floor. It didn't appear like a burst pipe. A slow, soft rain was drizzling down from the ceiling to the floor in every room. The family decided to check the pipes anyway because the alternate theory was too uncomfortable to confront. The family shut down the water, but the indoor rain continued. So the family brought in the landlord of the home, and the landlord checked the piping and was confused. He couldn't piece together why water was coming down in this way. What was scarier was that the rain would change speeds, going from fast to slow within seconds. A burst pipe couldn't do that. The landlord suggested that the family call the sheriff. After the sheriff took a look at the house, he couldn't figure out what was going on either. He did, however, comment that Don Decker's behavior was getting stranger. Covered in sweat and as white as a sheet, Decker just said that he thought something evil was going on. Nobody disagreed with him. They could all feel it. As the family stood in silence trying to figure out what to do, they noticed something strange. The water froze in midair and started to get sucked back and up to the ceiling. The rain was now going in reverse. This was the final straw for the family, as there was no denying something otherworldly was going on, and it wasn't good. The family stayed in a different home for that night, and Decker was sent back to jail after his compassionate leave was completed. Decker's behavior still wasn't fully back to normal after the visit with his grandfather's body, and the indoor rain happened again, but only in Decker's cell where there were no overhead pipes at all. Police were terrified, even brought in a priest to exorcise Decker. The priest did the exorcism, and Decker went back to normal. No more indoor rain. Although Decker did say that the corrections officer avoided Decker as much as they could after this incident. So, was Decker possessed by evil? Was his grandfather? Where was his guardian angel? Are angels appearing to warn us and protect us from evil that walks this earth, or from ourselves? What do you guys think? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from all of you. Also, if you're a fan of storytelling of the mysterious and supernatural, be sure to go ahead and subscribe for more content just like this. As always, I love you all, keep an open mind, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.